My answers will appear on her channel, so do be... Blah, blah. Hi all, today I'm doing a collaboration video with Alice Olivia, and we will be asking each other a set of questions. Her answers will appear on my channel and my answers will appear on her channel, so do make sure to check out both videos and both channels. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up, to give her video a thumbs up, to subscribe to her channel, and let's get to the questions. So the questions that we will be answering today are: when did you develop your eating disorder? How old were you and why? When did you realize you had a problem and what actions did you take? How did you go about recovery? What helped you most? When did you meet your boyfriend and how does he help you in recovery? What are your thoughts on veganism in recovery and how did you learn about veganism? And then the last question, do you believe in set point theory and what is your experience with it? So this is a tremendous amount of questions, so I reckon we get right to it.
Hello everyone, my name is Alice and these are my answers to the questions. Okay, so the first question is, when did you develop your eating disorder? How old were you and why? So I developed my eating disorder when I was 19. In a nutshell, I had been chronic dieting ever since the age of 15, and since calorie restriction and dieting never works in the long term, I eventually had to turn to more and more unhealthy behaviors over time in order to keep the weight off. However, by the time I eventually reached my goal weight, which was always at the lowest possible end of the healthy BMI range. By this point, I had developed body dysmorphia and I had developed an obsession with being thin. So unfortunately, I just continued attempting to lose weight, which I did in a very unhealthy manner until the point that I was quite underweight for my body. All right, so question 2 is, when did you realize you had a problem and what action did you take? So I finally acknowledged that I had a problem in May of 2015. I essentially started to realize I had a problem because my relationship with my mom became more and more strained over time. I also started to do research on the health consequences of not having a period, which I didn't have. I also started to develop achy joints. My binges became more and more severe. My anxiety worsened. My depression worsened. I was physically exhausted every day and it just got to the point where I could not do it anymore. I also started doing a lot of research and realized that I had extreme hunger, which I was suppressing, which is why I kept going on these huge binges, and the binges became worse and worse over time. So I realized that I was essentially fighting my body, and I realized that I could not continue to suppress these binges for much longer. So the action that I ended up taking was I stopped abusing diet drinks and caffeine. I stopped binging on vegetables and tea in order to fill up my stomach. I stopped over-exercising, I stopped fasting, and I stopped restricting calories. So essentially the action that I took was I just let the forces of my body take control and I gave up fighting my body. Okay, so the next question is, how did you go about recovery? What helped you the most? So what really helped me the most was reading and listening to the experiences of other women who had been through a similar recovery process that I was going through. Because this is what really allowed me to trust the process and is what kind of gave me hope that I could get through recovery, I could become a normal eater again, and I could be happy and confident one day without these eating disorder behaviors and without dieting and restricting calories. Okay, so question 4 is, when did you meet your boyfriend? How does he help you in recovery? So I met my boyfriend William in July of 2015. So I met him only about 3 months after I started recovering, and so I was at a place where I had gained a lot of weight, and so I felt very uncomfortable in my body. And I went from working a job where we were expected to dress up every day and wear a full face of makeup and have our hair done, to me just wearing baggy clothes from Goodwill, not wearing any makeup, not doing my hair, not doing anything for my appearance, because I just wanted a break from focusing on my body image, and I just wanted to focus on my personal development and who I was was on the inside, but it still was very difficult for me at that time, and I did feel pretty uncomfortable in my body at that time. So I met him in the volunteer house that I was staying at that summer, because I was volunteering at this kind of educational spiritual retreat center for the summer. I was with 10 other volunteers and living in a volunteer house with them, and he was one of the other volunteers in the volunteer house. And I started hanging out with William because I thought he was just super cool, and we just like connected so well, and it was just so easy to hang out with him and talk with him, and I felt like I could just be like completely myself with him, which just felt like so amazing. And also at the time, like, I really was not trying to meet anyone. I did not want like a relationship. I just felt terrible with my body, and I felt like no one would ever accept me at this place that I thought was like my worst place. But then I started hearing from the other volunteers that he liked me, and like I did not believe them at all, because I was like, no one could possibly like me at this state. But yeah, then we started our relationship at this place where we were volunteering, and it was like the most magical summer of my life, because we were volunteering on this island just off the coast of Vancouver Island. It was just such a magical, spiritual, healing place to just like fall in love there, and also begin to start to love your body and accept who you are as a person. It was just like such an incredible experience, and it was so healing for me and my recovery. So yeah, sorry, that was like a really long answer to where I met my boyfriend. So how does he help me in my recovery? He just like really helped me to realize that my appearance is not the most important thing. Sorry, it's getting really hot in here. So what also ended up happening was I ended up relapsing, and I ended up having to go through recovery again. And this time in my recovery, I actually overshot my weight. So I went up to a weight that I had never been in my entire life. So I thought the first time in my recovery was bad and I was uncomfortable in my skin, but I ended up overshooting almost 25 pounds above that weight. So I had to really focus on my personal development and just focusing on who I was on the inside rather than my outer appearance. And during that time, I actually moved in with my boyfriend for the summer, because me and my boyfriend are in a long distance relationship, but in the summers we live together and we work together. So it came to the summer and I moved in with him, and I was plateauing at my highest weight ever, and he never said anything about my weight or said anything about like my outer appearance, except for saying that he thought that I looked beautiful and showed me that he loved me no matter what I looked like, which just like helped my recovery so much and helped my self-acceptance so much. I could just like have no makeup on and just be in like baggy clothes, and I was at my highest weight, which was actually technically in the overweight range, yet he didn't love me any differently and just accepted me no matter what, which was just so incredible and so helpful for my recovery. Okay, so question 5 is, what are your thoughts of veganism in recovery, and how did you discover veganism? I originally discovered veganism accidentally, because when I was chronic dieting, I was like looking for anything to lose weight essentially, and I had remembered that one of my favorite YouTubers at the time, Shay Carl, had gone on a raw food cleanse in order to lose weight, and Shay Carl never talked about veganism, so I just saw it as like another diet in a way, this raw food diet. So I started researching raw food. When I searched up raw food, this thing called 80-10-10 kept on coming up. So eventually I looked into what 80-10-10 was, and I discovered it was a book, and 80-10-10 describes a macronutrient ratio of 80% carbs, 10% protein, 10% fat. Essentially, I immediately went on this raw food cleanse, I saw it as, where I was only eating fruit, essentially, like raw fruit. So I was eating lots of bananas and watermelon and mangoes and peaches and pineapple. At the time, it was actually summertime, so there was lots of fruit available. And even though I found it through like pretty unhealthy intentions, I actually started to feel pretty great eating this way, because at the time I had severe cystic acne, I had severe menstrual cramps, I also had iron deficiency anemia, and so when I started following this way of eating, suddenly like my skin cleared up, I didn't have any cramps during my period, and I stopped craving ice obsessively, which was a symptom of my iron deficiency anemia. And I also found that I just had so much energy and I could recover faster after workouts. But unfortunately, when I followed this way of eating, I would still try to restrict the amount that I was eating. But from there, I found Freely the Banana Girl on YouTube, who promotes promotes eating in abundance, eating unlimited calories on this way of eating, and also promoted raw till 4. So she promoted eating raw during the day but then eating a cooked meal at night. And at this point I had still considered it like a diet that I was on temporarily, but then I started to do a lot of research and watch documentaries and found out about veganism, and then I realized I just couldn't go back to eating animal products after I finished this raw cleanse or whatever. And I had been vegetarian for years as a kid because I loved animals, and so it kind of felt amazing because I connected back to my love for animals that I had when I was a kid, and I really connected with the ethical side that I had when I was a kid that I had forgotten for so long. But essentially I was then following Freely's advice of eating in abundance for a while, but then I started listening to more people who said that, you know, you should restrict calories to lose weight and that you can't slow down your metabolism and that set point theory is not real. And so unfortunately I started following that group of people again, which led to more chronic dieting and eventually led to my eating disorder. And so in my recovery I sort of found two groups of people who were really helpful for me. I found the mini mod community, which promotes eating in abundance on a standard American diet, and this group was really great for me because it showed me that you can slow your metabolism down from dieting, that you should be eating in abundance. Set point theory is real. It explained everything about extreme hunger. It introduced me to the Minnesota starvation experiment of what happens when we go through a period of semi-starvation and the stages of recovery. But the other group of people that I was really resonating with was the people who promoted eating in abundance on raw till 4, because essentially both these groups had quite similar philosophies and they explained the stages of recovering from semi-starvation quite well, in that you will gain weight, you will plateau, and eventually you will taper off back down to your set point. But my issue with the mini mod community was that they were promoting eating a standard American diet. They seem to be ignoring a lot of nutritional science and a lot of facts, and they seem to be turning a blind eye to the obesity epidemic that we have and all the health issues that we have today, which kind of made me not really trust what they were saying, and it made me not really believe in what they were promoting. Because when, for example, somebody would ask them like, well, if you can eat in abundance on a standard American diet, like why are there people who are obese and have overridden their set point? And their answer to that would always be like, well, their obese weight is their set point. And they also ignored all the health consequences of what happens when we eat in abundance on a standard American diet and when we have a lot of meat, dairy, and junk food in our diet. They seem to be ignoring the facts that our diet is related to these health issues such as type 2 diabetes, cancer, heart disease, and many other minor health issues. So I felt like I didn't quite fit in with that philosophy. And also my issue with the other side, the side that promoted eating in abundance on a raw till 4 style diet, was that a lot of people are not satisfied just on having fruit, and also this group of people promoted having like little to no fat in their diet, which I found was very important for satiation, and also I saw that this side could kind of promote some orthorexic tendencies. So what I found, what was best for me, was kind of a combination of both of these groups of people's philosophies, in that I believed that it's important to eat in abundance. I believe that it's important to eat a wide variety of foods, but I also believe that it's important to not ignore nutritional science and ignore the relationship between what we eat and how we feel. So what I found worked best for me was to eat in abundance on a plant-based diet, but also include vegan junk foods that I crave and processed foods that I crave, because eating predominantly whole food plant-based allows me to feel my best and brings out my best, most energetic, vibrant self, but also eating junk foods that I crave because it makes me feel more mentally free and allows me to be more flexible, and I believe it can be a part of a healthy lifestyle. And I promote eating in abundance on a plant-based diet. So I personally eat 2,500 to 4,000 calories on a plant-based diet. And overall, in my experience, following a plant-based diet in my recovery was actually quite beneficial for my recovery, because, for example, eating in abundance on a standard American diet does lead to these health issues for me, such as iron deficiency anemia, severe cystic acne, and menstrual cramps. And so eating in abundance on a plant-based diet eliminates these health issues for me, and I believe it helped lessen the symptoms that come along with recovery, such as breakouts and bloating. And in addition, since whole plant foods are not hyperpalatable foods and they're full of lots of fiber, water, and nutrients, I believe that it really allowed my body to heal faster. I believe it helped me to find my hunger signals quicker and find my set point faster. So overall, I believe it really helped make my recovery process a lot smoother. But that being said, I think it's really important to recognize that every single one of us is different, and if you are not vegan already and you're going into recovery and cutting out animal products seems restrictive to you, I believe that it's really important to not restrict animal products from your diet if you are not mentally ready yet. And also, those recovering from anorexia who have never binged before and whose stomachs are quite small and they're not used to eating large volumes of food, it is very important for those people to eat very calorically dense food so that they're able to get enough calories. And those recovering from orthorexia, it is very important to eat junk foods and processed foods that they crave. So every single one of us is different, and I think that we have to experiment to see what is going to be best for us at different stages of our recovery. But in the long term, I think that a plant-based diet can be best for having a sustainable recovery and promoting overall health. So that is my personal philosophy on that. Okay, so finally question 6 is, do you believe in set point theory and do you have any experience with this? So yes, I do believe in set point theory. I do believe that our body has a set point range that we were genetically supposed to be at, but I also take into account something called settling point theory that explains why we can override our set point and experience higher settling points. Because I think it's important to recognize that biological control of our intake and expenditure does exist, but there are social and environmental factors that can override our set point. So I believe it's important to take into account both set point theory and settling point theory, because together they are able to explain why we are able to gain weight past our set point and establish higher settling weights, but also why each of us has a weight that we cannot go down below healthfully, and why we tend to gravitate back to a specific set point range when lifestyle, our environment, medication, and health conditions are not interfering with taking us back to our set point range. So my experience with set point theory is that I do have a set point range that my body performs optimally at. Because of set point theory, that is essentially why I was chronic dieting for so many years, because my body would always try to take me back up to this set point range. The reason why I continued to diet and the reason why I eventually developed my eating disorder is because I could not accept the fact that my set point range was much higher than the weight that I actually wanted to be at, because my goal weight was always at the lower end of the healthy weight range, but that weight is not healthy for my body. That's why the BMI chart is kind of BS, because technically, even though I can be 120 pounds and still technically be in the healthy weight range, that is underweight for my body, and my body cannot perform optimally at that lower weight, because my healthy weight range is, for example, between 130 to 140 pounds, and so if I go below 130 pounds, that is underweight for my body, even though that is technically within the healthy BMI range. And so I wanted to believe that set point theory was not true, because I wanted to be super skinny and I wanted to be able to maintain that lower weight, but my body would always gravitate back up to that weight. In addition, my experience of why set point theory is true is that I overshot my set point weight range to my highest weight of 164 pounds, and after my body was done healing, after my hormones balanced out, and after my hunger cues normalized, then my body took me back down to my set point range with no calorie restriction whatsoever, because that is the weight that my body performs optimally at, and so my body gravitated back down to that set point weight range. So yeah, those are my answers to the questions. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys want to see more from me, don't forget to check out my channel. So let's go back to Han.
Thank you all for watching this video. If you enjoyed watching Alice's responses to these questions, then check out her channel. Be sure to subscribe to my channel as well. Be sure to like this video, like hers, and I will see you next week.